As a teenager, my best friend Robert and I shared an unforgettable experience that still puzzles us. At the age of 15, Robert invited me over for a sleepover, his parents being away for the weekend. I cycled over to his place, parked my bike in his backyard, and entered through the back door. We spent the evening engrossed in video games, munching on popcorn and junk food, and half-watching movies. As the night wore on, we decided to make prank calls. After Robert had his fun with a few pizza places, it was my turn. I dialed random numbers, hoping to catch someone at home. On my fourth try, I connected with a man with a deep, gruff voice. Robert's laughter in the background made me stumble over my words, and I burst into laughter. The man on the other end was silent. I tried to continue the call, but the man asked if my name was Robert. This realization hit us hard. I hung up immediately, and we began to research how someone could identify a caller's name so quickly. We found no answers. Later that night, we heard the front storm door open, followed by the sound of the doorknob turning. We turned off the TV, and I peered out the window. A tall man was standing outside. He noticed the blinds moving and turned to look at me. I quickly let the blinds fall back into place. We hid in the kitchen, listening for any more sounds. We heard the gate to the backyard open. I realized I had left the back door unlocked. As I approached the hallway leading to the back door, I saw a silhouette standing outside. The man entered the house. We retreated upstairs to Robert's room, pulling the door shut quietly. We crawled under his bed, which was covered with a cloth, hiding us from view. We heard the man moving around the house, his footsteps growing closer. He entered Robert's room and started rummaging through the closet. Then he approached the bed. Robert's breathing was loud, and I covered his mouth with my hand. The room fell silent. Suddenly, Robert was dragged out from under the bed. I crawled out and saw him struggling with the man. I grabbed a screwdriver from Robert's nightstand and stabbed the man in the back. He let go of Robert, screaming in pain. We seized the opportunity to escape. We ran into the woods, hiding behind a bush. The man followed us, but it was too dark for him to see us. We waited until we couldn't hear his footsteps anymore, then ran back to the house. We called the police, and while Robert stayed on the line with them, I watched the backyard from the window. I turned on the backyard lights and saw the man standing near the woods. He disappeared back into the woods, and we never saw him again. 5 years have passed since that night, and nothing similar has happened. We sometimes wonder if the prank call and the break-in were connected, but it doesn't make much sense. This is the story of the terrifying break-in that Robert and I survived as teenagers. My wife and I have had our fair share of disagreements. But one particular night, her incessant complaints over trivial matters reached a boiling point. The final straw was a heated argument over me forgetting to put the toilet seat down. Unable to bear the tension, I called my friend Kevin and asked if I could stay at his place for the night. Exhausted and frustrated, I needed a break from my wife's constant nagging. Kevin lived in a spacious house, a fact that my wife often used to berate me about how our friends had better homes than us. We spent the evening having a few beers and a heart-to-heart conversation. He kindly offered me to stay as long as I needed, but I assured him it would only be for a night. Kevin's house had 3 guest bedrooms lined up next to each other, with his own bedroom across the hall. It was an unusual setup, but it allowed me to hear strange noises coming from the adjacent room. Assuming it was Kevin, I decided to investigate when the noise became bothersome. However, the door was locked. When I asked Kevin about the noise and the locked door, he seemed oblivious and mentioned that he kept personal belongings in those rooms. I returned to my room, and the noises had stopped. Just as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard a faint tapping on the wall and a soft voice from the next room. Alarmed, I rushed to Kevin's room. This time, he took my concerns seriously. He unlocked the room next to mine, and we were greeted by a gust of wind from the open window. The room was in disarray, with signs of someone having been on the bed and Kevin's valuables missing from the drawers. Kevin quickly unlocked the 3rd guest bedroom, and we were shocked to see a dark figure leap out of the window onto the patio roof. We rushed outside through the back door in an attempt to catch the intruder, but he had vanished. What we discovered in the room was even more disturbing. The white sheets were stained with blood, a missing butcher knife was found in the closet with traces of blood on it, and more of Kevin's valuables were missing. It became clear that homeless individuals, likely dangerous drug addicts, had been living in Kevin's home for over a week. Kevin's earlier comment about his food disappearing quickly now made sense. As far as we know, these intruders were never caught. I can recall it as if it happened just yesterday. It was my inaugural sleepover, a significant milestone in my childhood. My companion was my close friend, Jesse, and we were both 10 years old. Jesse's house had an expansive basement, a perfect playground for us. We indulged in video games until the early hours of the morning, and then, like two little renegades, we skipped brushing our teeth and headed straight to the couches for some sleep. I drifted off effortlessly. I woke up at an indeterminate time, noticing the television was still on, displaying a blank screen. It emitted a faint glow, just enough to illuminate something peculiar in the far corner of the basement near the stairs. It was a tall, indistinct object, its form unclear, but its height was almost touching the ceiling. The sudden silence and darkness that followed the television switching off was enough to send chills down my spine. I kept my eyes shut, lying there without moving. I don't recall when I fell back asleep, but I vividly remember being jolted awake by a terrifying scream from upstairs. It was Jesse's mother. Jesse and I exchanged glances before we bolted upstairs to his parents' room. His mother was in tears while his father was frantically searching the room for whatever had caused her distress. He rushed past us, scouring the house for any intruders, but there were no signs of anyone entering or leaving the house. Jesse and I remain friends to this day, and the last time I brought up this incident, he mentioned that his mother prefers not to discuss it. However, she once confessed to seeing a tall, dark figure standing by their bedroom door. I am convinced that it was the same figure I saw in the basement that night. At the age of 16, with my friend being 15, we found ourselves in a chilling situation one night. He had invited me for a sleepover, and with his mom at work and his dad at the gym, we were alone in the house. We were upstairs in his room, engrossed in a video game, when we heard a series of scratching noises and soft bangs. We dismissed it initially, attributing it to his dog, and continued our game. However, the noises grew louder, prompting us to investigate. The dog was lounging outside his parents' room, so it couldn't have been the source of the noise. Fearing a break-in, we armed ourselves with knives and flashlights and began a thorough search of the house. We found nothing upstairs, so we moved downstairs, using only our flashlights to navigate. We decided to extend our search to the backyard, despite it being fenced and having a steep drop-off on the other side. Finding nothing, we decided to check the front of the house and the perimeter of the fence. As we split up, my friend froze, his flashlight fixed on the woods near the drop-off. I joined him, and to our horror, we saw a man dressed entirely in black, staring back at us. We bolted back into the house and dialed 911. The officers arrived but found nothing, advising us to call again if anything else happened. We stayed downstairs as instructed by his parents, and about an hour later we noticed a beam of light shining through the window from over the fence. We called 911 again, but once more, the officers found nothing. We were on edge until his dad arrived and dismissed our fears, attributing the noises to a hunter. 2 weeks later, I was back for another sleepover. As we were reminiscing about the hunter incident, I noticed someone peeking over the fence. We called the dog inside and locked the door. Later, from his room, we saw a figure peeking over the fence again. Armed with knives and flashlights, we ventured into the backyard, and our flashlight beam caught the outline of a head near the fence. We ran inside and called 911, but the officers found nothing. We didn't tell his parents this time, fearing they wouldn't believe us. A couple of hours later, we heard a loud banging starting from the downstairs left side and moving to the front door. We grabbed the dog, barricaded ourselves in his parents' room, and armed ourselves with his dad's gun. We called 911, but once again, the officers found nothing. However, this time the story took a different turn. The next day, a man was found unconscious near the woods, dressed in black. He was identified as a local thief who had been terrorizing the neighborhood. He was arrested, and we finally breathed a sigh of relief. The incident still sends chills down our spines, but we're glad it ended with the culprit behind bars.